All right, guys, we're live. Cold hard truth bomb coming at you this morning with my buddy Ameer Rosic. How you doing, brother?
I'm good, man. How you doing?
Yeah, good. I was just, we're on basically trying to stay home as much as possible. So I was browsing YouTube the other day, and I saw you did this little segment on communism. And I know your family escaped communism, and you got some personal experience. And I always love listening to those guys out there that are social media gets really busy these days. Everybody wants to use it as a platform to announce their beliefs and try to impose what they think is right and wrong. And there's always a lot of people that are like, we need to spread out more free shit and, tax people more and control more. And I always think about you and the dialogue that we've kind of jumped in from time to time. And that video you did the other day on communism, I thought it was appropriate. So I don't know, 15, 20 minutes tops. I wanted to kind of dive into a little bit. Your family escaped communism from
Former Yugoslavia.
So you've got some firsthand experience. I want to throw this into the stream for the guys listening. Guys, as you're piling in, preferences, go to YouTube, watch it over there, participate in the chat there. If you got a question, you can drop in a super chat or something. That'd be awesome. It's also really the only place that I'm able to monitor comments. I don't pay attention to the other platforms, but watch where you are. So let's play this because I heard this drop in my feed the other day.
I've heard a lot of
Can you guys hear that, by the way?
Older people calling in.
Yeah, can you hear it?
The one lady, she was talking about Bilderbergs.
All right, so just listen to this for a minute.
About the difference between Trump and Obama. As a 30-year-old man, you know what I mean. I haven't been on this planet very long, man. But I was born in '91. I've seen history change in such a dramatic way that probably people haven't really seen in that light. Going 40 years prior. And what I mean by that is like the technology boom. There is so much information out there from
and that's the thing. That's the thing is you've been born in 1991 is pretty amazing and a pretty amazing headspace to be in, because for people like me who were teenagers in 1991, I know that you would have grown up automatically going, oh, I've got the internet over here. As a 5-year-old, that would have been pretty common. So as you get into 10, 11, 12, 13 as a teenager, the internet's already commonplace to you. Whereas to me, it wasn't commonplace and then for someone like Bobby, who's 55, it was completely foreign to him.
I used to produce radio shows without the interweb.
But you see, this is kind of what I'm getting at. You know what I mean? Like this simple, even when I was 5, honestly, the internet wasn't really a big thing until I was about maybe like 99, 98 when I really got into the internet. By the time I was 14 in 2000 or 2005, you know what I mean? That's when I could really start dissecting information on the internet. You know what I mean? Going on old school IRC.
Let's call what a 14-year-old doing on the internet is dissecting information. All right, if you want to call it that,
no, but just hear me out for a second. You know what I mean? So conspiracy theorists, right? I'm not trying to get into no conspiracy talk, but what I'm trying to say is, you know what I mean?
This guy's in Ontario, by the way.
Till now that I'm 29, that's 15 years. I have been looking at every type of crazy possible scenario any person's even thought of, and put out there on the internet. And, after sifting through that information, as a millennial, you learn to see what information is just completely stupid, bonkers, whatever. And you start looking at the big picture, So when I feel like a lot of people are looking at information, they're just getting this crazy idea in their head, like there's some big government cabal trying to like depopulize the world. No.
I've been hearing that since I got into radio in 1993.
That's not the most absurd thing. That's not the most absurd thing.
No, of course it's not.
But what you have to really look at it is people are people. And yes, there is a divide. I'm not going to talk about like a wage caste divide, but there are certain people. You know what I mean? If you were a billionaire and you had influence on your country's politics and you wanted something to happen a certain way, come on, man.
You can make it happen.
But,
the Koch brothers are a great example. Warren Buffett is a great example. George Soros. They're all.
He's one of those.
I know he's a great guy, but he's also a rich guy with a lot of influence. All right.
When you put him against somebody like Jeff Bezos, come on, man! Like, who's really got the higher moral ground?
I'm not. But this is a discussion about who got the moral ground, who has the moral high ground. This is a discussion. This is a discussion about billionaires who can use their money for influence, right? That's what the discussion's about. Are you correct? Right. So Warren Buffett is one of those guys. Jeff Bezos is one of those guys. Elon Musk and Mark Zuckerberg are all those guys.
And it's truly pitiful how much effort they're putting into. I think
Here we go.
one of them was like, or Bill Gates quoted a number like $100 million. I literally posted on his Reddit thing, dude, you are literally one of the richest people in the world.
Give you comment context. He said, what is $100 billion?
No, he said that he was donating $100 million. I posted in reply to that, what is $100 million to a man that has like multiple billions? $100 million isn't even a percentage.
Yeah, I saw a great tweet today. Someone mentioned that Michael Bloomberg, one of those other rich billionaires, said that he was going to donate $50 million to the fight for COVID-19. And I thought, wow, that's a sizable amount of money. But someone pointed out, Michael Bloomberg, hang on, let me finish. Someone pointed out Michael Bloomberg makes $107 million a day. So and then he spent $500 million on his election campaign to try and get the Democratic nomination, and that failed horribly as well. So it's disingenuous. And I look at him, I sort of raise my eyebrow at a guy that makes $107 million a day going, oh, I'm going to donate $50 million to COVID-19 research. Dude, you could probably donate a 6 months or a year's salary that you make, and that would probably help change everything, right? These guys are so rich. Some of these folks are so rich that they could absolutely spend peanuts of their money and buy all the respirators you'd ever need.
And then, that leads me into thinking what that guy said about his wife, you know what I mean, being a frontline worker and how the government's not doing enough.
Yeah,
John, and it's like, yes, no, our government is coming to bat. They're really trying. But at the same time, are they doing enough? Why aren't you holding people like those billionaires accountable instead of trying to go to your community and telling us?
All right, I think that's enough. So you get the idea. It's a standard. Why don't we hold the billionaires accountable? He makes $100 million a day, but he donated 50 million. Like, what did this clown donate? Aside from a pretty harsh opinion. Like, what's your take when you hear stuff like that? I'm curious, from a guy like you that escaped a communist country, you came to Canada, your family set up a new life. I know your brother works in a communist country back and forth, moving products. What are your thoughts?
It goes to psychology. Well, Peter Pan syndrome, man-child syndrome. A lot of these people have, especially, he hit the nail in the coffin, born in the 90s. He's a
millennial,
younger than me. I'm born 85. And I was probably the last generation. Yeah, I never grew up with the internet. I was the last generation. So I didn't have cell phones. We had pagers. So I didn't have Facebook. I didn't have any of this stuff. I was literally the last generation before the internet came. Mm-hmm. And thank God, actually. Thank God. And I really, for how I view it as, is couple of fold. One, I don't want to sound like I'm passing the puck, but it's actually not that kid's fault or not guy's fault. I'm very interested who his parents are, right? The ideas that this person has, a lot of it comes from his parents, and a lot of it comes from maybe the schooling that he went through. So
it's a function of society and schooling for sure. I mean, the beliefs that he uses to express his opinions today come from all of those inputs.
Yeah. Like for me, a lot of my belief system comes, I remember as a kid vividly watching the Yugoslavian war in the 90s, and a lot of my family members die in that war. And so that leaves a stain on your psyche when you know what the fuck the government's responsible for.
Yeah.
Same with my wife's family. Like they're Kuwait and Iraqi. Like you think I trust the government for the best being of myself? Get the fuck out of here. So for me, I view as a psychology. This person has been helicoptered, babied, probably never even had serious, let's call it, circumstances in his life. And I'm just guessing. And it's interesting because the people who are always trying to bring other people's down, they have their own internal demons. It's a very notion of, if it goes back to the fox fable, that passage?
Explain
the fox. So in a nutshell, the fox keeps on trying to get grapes from the tree. Tries, doesn't get it. Tries, doesn't get it. So he has to justify the reason why he's failing. And the fox says, well, these grapes are sour. That's the reason why I can't get these grapes. They're sour. It's not because I didn't give more effort, or not because I was trying a different way. They're sour. Therefore, I can't eat them. Mm-hmm. So we as human beings justify, we create stories. So people who are looking at other people who are jealous or envious, they need to justify some logical fallacies within their mind to have to make sure their ego is safe. They must protect their ego. It's like, wait a second. If I can't be a billionaire, it's not because it's my fault. It must be Jeff Bezos' fault. There's something wrong with Jeff Bezos over here. I tried everything. It can't be my fault. And it goes to, like, I talk about, like, René Girard's mimetic theory. It's called passing the sin or passing the puck. It's never your fault. There always has to be a scapegoat. Human beings, at least the groups and the human beings, one-to-one or intellectual. You can sit down with anybody and you guys can have rapport. And over time, you can see there's a lot more commonalities as opposed to disagreements. But when you get into that herd mentality, you get into mimesis. Monkey see, monkey do. It becomes almost autopilot. People don't think for themselves. And so René Girard talks about the process of the mimesis cycle, where people stop thinking for themselves. We hit certain tipping point of an issue into society, and it's never the person's fault. It's always somebody else's fault. It's a minority group. It's somebody in the government. It's billionaires in this case. It's a capitalist system. Something has to be in the scapegoat. Let's find out a scapegoat. Let's burn the scapegoat, literally kill the scapegoat, cleanse ourselves of the sin, and repeat the whole fucking cycle again.
What's the difference between the version of communism that your family escaped from in Yugoslavia and the version that a lot of these younger kids today, I mean, it's not even the younger kids. I think the population in general tend to follow that sheepish sort of mindset. But the version that they really try to appeal to and convince us is a better idea than a more free market space. It's different from the communism that you guys ran from, right?
All forms of communism is the same. In fact, you shouldn't even label it communism. It's just a dictatorship. It's one person in power. If they theoretically followed communism, it would be better for the short term. Like there's a honeymoon effect, like free money, people are getting in the long term. It just collapses. It's Ouroboros, the snake eating.
Well, it's never worked. I mean, they've tried it a number of times in a number of different countries, and it's
Vietnam doesn't work. China doesn't work. USSR didn't work. You know, Titoville. You know, Tito was the president for life in Yugoslavia. That didn't work. As soon as he died, the whole thing collapsed. But the whole notion of means of production, so classical definition of whether socialism, I view them exactly the same.
Do you think that somebody dropped this comment? I'm just kind of scrolling up to catch up here.
They're not socialists. That's a misnomer.
Norway, Sweden, Denmark, Finland, and Iceland are all socialists and consistently, like, this is the argument that they always use. It's consistently ranked in the top 15 places in the world to live.
Couple things. Number one, they're not socialists. The definition of socialism is a means of production and is a centralized government that you guys can't vote for. If you guys ever lived in a fucking USSR, Yugoslavia, there's one party. That's it. There's no, even though it's a make-believe left versus right, like they're pretty much the same party over here, but you still have the option. And independents can run. Like Trump won. You know, Richard and I, if we decide we want to run for MP or we want to run for premier, we can run. And if people vote us in, we vote. That doesn't exist in a socialist country or a communist country. It's one party. That's it. End of story. You're only voting for one person. And so the whole notion that the Scandinavian countries are socialists, that's not true. Not true whatsoever. They're actually more free market, believe it or not, than United States. What they have is really fucking high taxes. That's what they have. Extremely high taxes.
They have a lot of government programs, high taxes.
Yeah. But the reason why they can do what they do, but you can see a lot of the countries, they nationalized their natural resources, and they're actually on the decline. They're becoming welfare states. But people forget this. Only fucking reason they can do a lot of that stuff, United States guarantees backed military fucking budget of NATO. These countries don't have a military. There's peanuts. After World War II, they made the super pact, United States, also with China, that we will become the world police. We will guarantee safety of Western Europe against USSR. We will guarantee safe passage of all commercial boats, so super freighters from China to the United States, with our Navy. Like the United States Navy is like 150 years ahead of any Navy. Like it's ridiculously how advanced the United States Navy is. One, I think it's called like a Nimitz, like they're super.
Yeah, they can
take out the whole Chinese Navy.
Yeah, they can basically park their entire air force off somebody's coast anywhere in the world within a week.
Bro, and they got 15 of those.
Yeah.
Like, think about that. It's insane. It's like some ridiculous number.
No, the military power is absolutely absurd. Like they have reached beyond
Yeah.
any other country out there.
And so imagine like you're these Scandinavian, you don't like the GDP of the United States. I forget what the percentages goes into the military complex, like the budget. And so they pretty much fund NATO. So you're the Scandinavian country, you have low population, you're pretty much homogenous. You're kind of gliding through your I would say pre-high tax policies from the 90s. But then if you look at the statistics now, they're actually on the decline, all those countries.
You know what I've noticed about guys like you that have come to Canada? Because I mean, Canada is a melting pot of a lot of different cultures, and guys like you, Dimitri, a lot of guys that have like moved from communist countries to, I mean, Canada's not particularly free. I mean, it's freer than Yugoslavia to some degree, but you're more libertarian. Right, like you're more for personal freedom, less government, smaller government, less control.
Yeah, but the reason why I'm like that is like, first,
why is that?
There's a psychological shift when you see a country go to war and like 20% of your family member dies.
Mm-hmm.
You know what I mean? Very few people in the world, I want to say few, actually maybe majority, like depending on where you're from. Like my wife's family, Kuwait, Iraq, the last 20, 30 years, multiple wars, multiple family members gone. Yugoslavian war, World War II, we got destroyed as well. And so when you have the psychological stain on you, you have a real big distrust, like the government really is there for you.
Mm-hmm. But I mean, there's an entire generation of people out there today that actually trust the government. Like they think the government has their best interest at heart.
Yeah. Until they throw you in concentration camps. People are like, oh, the Canadian government's good. I'm like, do you guys forget that they threw fucking Japanese in concentration camps here?
Mm-hmm.
And they're like, what? I'm like, read your fucking history.
Yeah, natives as well. Like they didn't get particularly great treatment.
It's almost like they
took them away from their family and try to separate them from
They
culture.
suppressed it. They didn't even teach that in school.
No, they've kept it pretty quiet. I mean, they're still apologizing for it because Justin Trudeau likes to apologize for everything for the last 100 years. But it's just so bizarre to me that we've got this group of people that are just like, you know what, I'm not in control of my life. And
the man-child is
all these other people control my life, and they have the money, so money bad. Rich man bad, money bad. They should solve this problem and just like I saw this post earlier this morning where somebody was saying, the Republican solution to this COVID outbreak is either have everybody home for a period of time or the economy shuts down. Like, what do you want? Like, some people are going to get sick and die. The cure can't be worse than the problem, blah, 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 all that sort of thing. And they're like, well, the third solution is just have everybody stay home for 3 months and have all the rich people pay for it, right? Like have all the people that have done the work, created value in their life, solved massive problems, automated many things, created a lot of jobs and businesses and stuff like that, pay for where we are today, right? And it's like, a lot of you people that are trying to manufacture your own version of communism or socialism or whatever ism it is that you want to call it in Canada, forget that communism manufactured this Chinese virus. That's why it's here today.
So so we have to rewind before the virus, the wet farms. So wet farms are actually naturally part of
What's a wet farm? Just to explain it to guys that don't know what that is, that might be watching us right now.
Yeah. So a wet
I think
farm,
it's called a wet market, right?
Yeah, well, there's wet farms, and this goes to the wet market. So
let me just pull up a picture so you can get a visual of what these things look like.
Yeah, that'll be better. So the wet market's been traditionally part of Chinese history for a long time, so that's nothing new.
Yeah.
What goes on is the wet markets have a very strong lobby group in China, and they have a lot of friends on the top. And the wet markets bring in a pretty good significant percentage of the GDP within that area. And so basically traditionally how the farms used to be, they used to be small farms, very local small farms. Actually before that they used to hunt, but then small farms came for these these are like wild creatures. These are like the most obscured animals you can think about.
Yeah.
And then eventually the government needed more revenue and they saw there's shit ton of money being made from this. They industrialize these farms.
A lot of these wet markets, by the way, they're not dead animals on display. They're mostly live and they slaughter them on location. And they're all sitting in cages kind of stacked on top of one another. Like you could have poultry, you could have swine, you could have everything kind of like snakes, everything. So bro. That's how all of these pathogens move back and forth.
And so basically the reason why this exists is because of very bad government policies. And like end the story. Like literally why the wet markets exist and why these industrial horrible farms exist, because of government policies.
Pull that down. All right. So is there a version of communism or socialism or ism that you think does work, that does serve humanity?
No. It goes against the laws of nature. Like you look at the laws of nature, you look at, for example, any creature out there, let's say a lion. The lion has to go out, or the lioness, they have to hunt. They have to put in the work. And if they're not successful in a hunt, that pack does not feed.
You don't survive.
They don't survive. It's a law of the jungle. There is no lion government that comes in. Oh, don't worry. We're going to take a piece of Richard's fucking meat that he caught. And we're going to give you Richard's meat. And so basically it goes against human nature. Like human beings, for the most part, we are hunters and gatherers, which I look at the most purest free market possible. You're in the middle of somewhere, wherever. It can be the Inuits of Canada. It can be in the jungles, the Amazonian jungles. And we're together and we're like, here's a free market, boys. Let's fucking survive. Let's figure out how we can get food and water and shelter and actually build a tribe. That's the fucking free market. It's the very nature of civilization. And I think context matters. I think, Nassim Taleb said it. And I think you can be very socialistic principles in a very tiny community of people that you know. Like, let's say you and I are living in like a small, very small community of 100 people that we know everybody by name and we help each other. It's our tribe. It's like extended family, right? We can have socialistic philosophies, but not imposed by somebody. Not like somebody comes around like, hey, you got to do this. No, just naturally. As we expand further and further up the hierarchy and context matters, we have to become much more libertarian. Because when you're right at the top of society, let's say federal, there's way too many different people out there, way too many different cultures out there, way too many different psychologies out there, way too many different contexts. Because you and I living in Toronto have very different problems than people living in Edmonton versus people living in British Columbia versus people living in Saskatoon. You can't apply the same laws for everybody. So context matters. And on the high level, you have to have the biggest free market. Like I always say, I'm not against government. I'm not an anarchist. I believe there should be like a small, tiny tax, like a flat tax, some form of it, where it pays for the military and it pays for protection of our private property. That's it. End of story. Government
It's interesting that you mentioned that, like it works on a small level, like in a small tribal community. Because I was just thinking as you were mentioning that, like I've got 2 younger brothers, and I remember, if we had a Snickers bar, right?
Yeah.
My dad would say, all right, you're the oldest. You can cut it up into 3 pieces, but your brother, my middle brother, gets to pick the first piece. My younger brother gets to pick the next piece, and I get what's left over.
Yeah.
So I was always encouraged in that environment to evenly cut up the Snickers bar into 3 equal thirds. It works in that environment. I totally agree. Families usually run that way. They usually, divide up resources amongst siblings, amongst, the family, just in that sense. But
yeah,
on a global scale, on a national scale, it's a train wreck when people walk around in life with a victim mindset, thinking that I have no hope, I'm oppressed. Like it's a loser mindset. You're never going to get out of that hole that you're sitting yourself in, wallowing. Nobody cares. Nobody cares about you. Like, stop sulking, right?
Yeah. And what happens in societies like this, you get something called preference falsification, where on the surface level, everybody is ho-hum. Yay, Chairman Mao, back in the day, or like, yay, Stalin. And in fact, example in Yugoslavia was, there's, like you mentioned, every country had their own type of communism, like their own mutation of ism. Yeah. So Titoism, kind of, they called it. So he told kind of Stalin to go fuck himself. And but it wasn't like public, like people didn't know about it. It wasn't like spread through down the grapevine. It was just like behind closed doors. And so it's fascinating to see people who still agreed with Stalin. They would just disappear. They never got the memo.
Yeah.
But so there's something called like falsification preferences in society, where on the surface everyone's like, oh, this society is great. Oh, we have great government. Oh, I love what I'm doing. But behind closed doors is like, fuck these guys. Fuck this. And so you'll never, ever going to have an advanced society or a better means of producing good products or services in these places. Because and this is why we say China's never going to be superpower when it comes to bettering the world. China's good at taking other people's IPs and making it faster, cheaper, and probably shittier. And when you're in a society where you have to control your thoughts and control what you think, you're not creative. You can't be a creative society. You know, for all its fucking issues, United States constitutional rights of freedom of speech is phenomenal. You look at people in Hollywood, or you look at anybody in the United States, you have the freedom to express yourself in a certain way. And this permutates and mutates into different creative ideas that spread throughout the world. It's not like the world's looking at China. Let me see what kind of cultural ideas I can take from here. Or let me see. No, because people are scared over there. You can't do that. You have to be a nice little robot and, you know, go into line and just behave. That's it. You're just
a cog in the wheel. Like, people don't understand the amount of freedom and the ability to choose, the ability to maneuver that you lose in that environment. Like, they think it's better, and it's really beyond me. Have you ever read this book by Henry Hazlitt?
Oh yeah, that's my I recommend that fucking book to everybody.
Oh, good. Okay, so I listened to that book a couple of years ago. I was just going to recommend it just to see what you thought of it, because it's a great summary. Like, economics in one lesson, the shortest and surest way to understand basic economics.
The best economic book for anybody to just get the 411 on it.
Yeah, I mean, if you want to get your head around economy, how minimum wage affects things, how different, you know, versions of isms and political ideologies affect the economy, this is the easiest. Like, you could have a grade 4 education and still understand economics once you've gone through this book. So I'd encourage you guys, if you're like, well, what are these isms and what's capitalism, what's socialism, and, you know, I've heard this and I heard that's bad and I heard this, like, go right to this source, because this is one of the best books that I've ever come across. It's actually pinned in my top comment. So if you go to my Amazon bookstore, in the top comment, click through that. All of those books I definitely recommend guys read, but this is one of them that's in there. I mean, dude, we could sit here and talk for hours about this topic, but I just wanted to kind of like
I want to leave
across it.
I want to leave with one thing for people to understand. The psychology of these people who think they're there to make you better, they're sociopaths. You have to understand, they crave power. You know, this is beyond politics. This is a dictatorship. It's my way or the highway, and there's gonna be a boot up your fucking ass. They're megalomaniacs. Like, people who are listening, understand, anybody anywhere in the world that tells you, I know what's best for you, fucking run. Just run as fast as you fucking can. Just run. These people crave power, because Chomsky said it, you know, the party's always in power. And my mom told me stories where, like, listen, if you were in like the top tier of the echelons of the Communist Party, bro, you can do what the fuck you want. Those rules don't apply to you. It's first tier people, second tier people, and at the bottom, everyone else is the fucking plebs. Everybody's plebs. And so just keep that in mind. These people want to control you. They're fucking sociopaths. Yeah.
It's guys, there's no free lunch. You have to understand in life that there is no free lunch. Everything comes at a cost, and you've got to do the work if you want to, you know, if you want to enjoy the results. You just can't sit there and whine and complain and then you get the results for free. Some people get a free pass in life, or a slightly free pass, but it's never long lasting. Guys, I'd encourage you to follow Ameer over at his channel, Ameer Rosic on YouTube. He puts out great content on a regular basis talking about ideas like this, and he's got really interesting guests. I just wanted to pull you in for a bit. I didn't want to go on for too long on this. I'm hosting Rule Zero in an hour on my channel, guys, so at 11:30 Eastern Standard Time. The event's created. We're going to hop on a One-itis and the Soulmate Myth. Got Rollo and the gang hopping in, so look for that in about an hour's time. Ameer, thanks for chiming in, man. I appreciate you sharing some wisdom and some experience. Talk to you soon, brother.
Yeah, man. Cheers.